Good morning, everybody. Hi, welcome to our webinar today. As you guys know, my name is David Velasco, and in today's webinar, I'm going to talk about 8 strategies for covering resistant gray hair. And here's the thing. It's amazing to me that no matter what hair color line you use, I mean, if it's Wella, Redken, Vermeese, Schwarzkopf, no matter, everyone at some point has trouble covering resistant gray hair. And I'm going to give you a few surprises. I think you're going to have a few aha moments as we go through this presentation here today. And I'm going to kind of be very brief. We're not going to drag this out all day long. This is only going to be hopefully for the next maybe half hour, 45 minutes or so. But I want to give you just 8 really good strategies, no matter what hair color line you use. Again, this information is completely generic information. I'm going to give you some good ideas as to how to handle gray coverage problems. Now, here's the thing. Keep in mind that these are the ways that I would do it. It's not the only way. Whenever I teach a hair color class, I always have somebody say, oh, well, I don't do it that way, I do it this way. And that's okay, that's fine, because in hair color, there's always more than one way to do a certain service. There's a lot of different techniques, a lot of different strategies. But those of you that have my books, Trade Secrets of a Hair Color Expert, have read about these before probably. We're going to focus on this book here today, which is called Great Gray Coverage. And in Great Gray Coverage, I actually do talk about some of these strategies that I'm going to discuss here this morning. But of course, because we have you live on the chat and everything, we're going to get into much more detail, and you have the opportunity to ask me questions. And we're just going to take a nice time about this and just try to explain it as thoroughly as possible. All right. So if you have any questions, feel free to put them down in the chat. If I say something you don't understand it, please ask me to re-explain. I do have an issue sometimes when I really get into a topic. I start rattling on, I start talking really fast. So if you want me to slow down, just say, hey, Dave, slow down. I can't understand what you're saying. Or if you want me to, reiterate more, please let me know. Okay? We're going to just make this real nice, real casual. I just want to give you some good ideas to take back to the salon with you, and hopefully we can get rid of all your gray coverage problems, because truly it is something we can take care of. All right. Okay, so I'm going to start off by sharing with you a few key factors about gray hair. First of all, how important is it for you to master gray coverage techniques? Because I know sometimes, like, a lot of younger hairdressers will say, like, well, I really don't work on that many old people. Like, I really want to work on, like, young people like me. But the truth of the matter is that those of you that have been doing hair long enough, like me, or even not quite as long as me, know that your bread and butter from hair color services is going to come from your gray coverage clients. Who agrees with that? Anybody agree with that? Give me a high five. I mean, I love doing ombre, and I love doing all those fancy techniques and all those, real creative color. But the fact of the matter is that what pays your rent, what pays your mortgage, what sends your kids to college, believe it or not, is covering gray hair. All right? Do you agree with that? If you agree with that, give me a high five on the chat. Okay? If you don't agree, let me know. Okay? That's right. Okay, so you guys agree. Okay, cool. We're good. All right, so let's look at a few quick facts about gray hair, first of all. Can you see my cursor here? You can see my cursor? Just let me say yes. Okay, good. All right, good. Okay, so the first thing we want to say is, let's talk about the baby boomers, okay? First of all, you have to understand that we are right now in what I call the age of hair color opportunity. And what does that mean? That means that because of the baby boomer generation, which I'm sure all of you know about very well, and maybe some of you are part of the baby boomer generation like I am, right now there is an estimated 75 million baby boomers in America alone right now. So I'm not even talking worldwide. I'm talking about just in our country, okay? They say that every hour, I don't know how they work this out, but they say that every hour over 300 people turn 50 in the United States alone, and that this trend will continue into the year 2022. I mean, that's pretty amazing when you think about how many people are getting older, how many people are turning, over 50, and that means that they're all getting gray. And guys, that's why I call this the age of hair color opportunity, because there's never been a better time in history to be a good hair colorist than right now, because of that fact, okay? All right, also here's another thing. Baby boomers have more disposable income than any other generation in history. I mean, baby boomers are making more money than they've ever have in the past, so they have the money to come into your salon. I mean, the next one says that, actually. Baby boomers want to look good, and they can afford it. For the first time ever, you have people like in their 60s and 70s even going into not just into beauty salons, getting their hair done, but they're going into joining health clubs, they're jogging, they're going to yoga classes, they're going to Zumba classes, they're doing all these things to look good and stay fit, and they want to look younger, all right? So that is key. All that health and beauty and nutrition and all that plays into our role as hairdressers as well, all right? And finally, the last one here is that more baby boomers are going to salons than ever before. You may not realize this or not, but like my grandmother, I mean, like my grandmother's day, like she never went to a beauty salon. I mean, maybe once in a great, great while she went to a beauty salon, maybe got a perm or something like that. But for the most part, you know, as far as, you know, the average person going to the salon like every 4 weeks or every 5 weeks or every, you know, 7 weeks or so to get their hair done, that's relatively new. I mean, relatively new meaning over the past 20 to 30 years, all right? So never before have we ever had such a great situation where all these dynamics came into play at one time, all right? Where the baby boomers are turning older, there's such a large portion of our population, and they can afford it, and they want to come in. So these are all adding up to saying we have a very good, bright future in doing hair color behind the chair, all right? Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is the fact that this is a color, what I call a hair color fact, and that is that there's no such thing as gray hair, okay? I mean, even as hairdressers, we still think it's gray hair because we call it gray hair. Those of you that have read my book, Great Gray Coverage, you know that in the book, a lot of times I don't even call it gray hair. I'll say gray/non-pigmented hair, all right? Gray/non-pigmented hair. And the reason I say that is because there's no real such thing as gray hair. There's only 3 hair colors, guys. There's 4 hair colors, actually. There's brown, there's red, and there's blonde. These are pigmented hair. And then there's non-pigmented hair, which is white, okay? Like this is my real hair color, okay? And I started getting white hair when I was very young. My grandmother, my father's mother, grayed at very, very young age. So this is my natural color, but it's white, okay? So what we perceive as being gray hair is actually a blend of pigmented hair with white hair, okay? In photography, there's something called the grayscale. Any of you into photography, by the way, especially black and white photography? I know it's not that popular anymore, but there's something called grayscale. And the grayscale says you have only 2 colors on the universe. One is white and one is black. And anything in between that is what we call the grayscale. So what I've made for us, you know, as far as teaching hair color, I've made our own grayscale pigment chart, and it looks something like this. Now again, if you have that Gray Coverage book, you may have seen this chart before. And what I say here is that imagine if we had 2 buckets of paint, okay? White paint on one side and black paint on the other side. And we got one of those buckets of paint. Let's say we got the white bucket of paint, and we started pouring the white bucket of paint into the black bucket of paint. As we pour, the more we pour, the lighter and lighter that dark color will start getting, lighter and lighter and lighter. Well, the same is true. If someone has, you know, dark pigmented hair or medium color pigmented hair, and we start putting white hair into the mix, it's going to look gray. Depending on the percentage of white that we put in there, the hair will look whiter and whiter and whiter, okay? So the more gray they have or the more white they have, the more we perceive it as being not so much gray all of a sudden, but now more white, okay? Like if someone says about my hair color, they'll say, you don't have gray hair, you have white hair. Well, in truth, everyone has white hair. It's just that they have so much more pigmented hair that offsets the look, and the look is gray, all right? But there's no real thing as gray hair per se, all right? Are you guys agree with me so far? Just give me a high five. Let me know you're awake. Let me know you're listening to me. Yes, 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 yes. Okay, cool. All right, wonderful. Okay, let's go on to the next thing I want to talk about. Is what I call 6 secret ground rules for working on gray/non-pigmented hair, okay? Now, these are not the 8 techniques yet. I'll get to those in a few minutes. These are not the 8 techniques for covering resistant gray hair. I want to welcome, by the way, we have a few more new people here. We have Jacqueline and we have Yolanda. Type hi in the chat to everybody, Jacqueline, Yolanda. And Laura, I think, is new with us as well. Anyway, so these are six ground, what I call 6 ground rules. And again, guys, it doesn't matter what color line you use. It doesn't matter if you're using Weller, L'Oreal, Schwarzkopf, Chromastix. It doesn't matter what you're using. All of these hold true straight across the board, okay? But these are some things you want to jot down, and then we'll get into the 8 strategies for covering resistant gray hair. Okay, so these are what I call my 6 ground rules. for working on gray hair. Okay, ground rule number one, never use a straight ash tint on gray hair, even if you want an ash blonde finish result. All right, and the rule behind that is right here, is ash hair, which is gray. In other words, this is ash. You don't get any ashier than this, plus an ash-based tint equals more ash or drab color. All right, so you don't want to put an ash-based color, which could be gray, it could be violet, it could be something in the blue family, on top of hair that's already ash. Because if it's ash on top of ash, it's going to produce a very drab results. Now, I make this an issue because so many times we have women coming into the salon that are a bit older, let's say a bit more mature women, and she says, she has gray hair, she says, I want to be an ash blonde. And when I was younger, they always used ash colors on me. Well, she's right. They did always use ash colors on her when she was younger, but when she was younger, she had pigmented hair. So they needed the ash to drown out the warmth. But now she's older. Let's say she's 70, for example, and she has all white hair. Well, if you put all ash on top of someone with all white hair, it's going to look very drab, in my opinion. Okay, so even if they say they want to be an ash blonde, don't use ash color. In that situation, even if you wanted to use an ash shade, you still want to keep it very, very cool. I would definitely say mix that ash, if you want to, with a neutral base color or even a gold color to warm it up a bit, okay? Because a pure ash color on pure white hair could look very, very drab and not pretty at all right? Laurie has a question here. Does those depend on percentage of white? I don't understand that. Okay, again, as far as percentage of white, remember we talked about percentages up here, okay? Now here's the thing. I'm talking now primarily with really, really blonde, really, really white hair. If you're talking very, very white hair, like I would say 75% to 100% gray white hair, do not use straight ash color. Anything darker than that, if you're down here, yes, then you can use an ash color. Laurie, that's a very good question. Thank you. If you go darker, even though she has gray in her hair, you could use an ash color because here you're actually you want to kill some of the warmth. You got to kill some of the warm tones that can be produced during the coloring process. So I'm talking primarily, let's say 70% or more gray white hair, do not use straight ash. But you can definitely use ash when you're going into your darker colors where you have more pigmented hair. Does that answer your question, Laurie? I think that was a good question there. Thank you. Okay. Good, cool, okay. Okay, ground rule number 2. To get total gray coverage on resistant gray hair, you always need to use either level 8 blonde or darker. If the hair is a fine texture, a level 9 may work. Now here's the thing. Sometimes I hear people say, oh, you know what, I can't get good gray coverage on my client. Her hair is very resistant, and for some reason, every time I color her hair, like after the color, I shampoo the color out, and I see some of the hair is colored, but a lot of the gray is still there, okay? And I'll say, like, what color are you using on her? And they'll say, well, you know, she wants to be a blonde, so I'm using a level 9, or level 9G, or 9A, or 9N. And the first thing I say, you know what, in a level 9 color, there simply isn't enough pigmentation in that tube to cover the gray hair. Most manufacturers will tell you that if you want to get good gray coverage, you must use at least a level 8 color or darker. Anything lighter than that, a 9 or a 10, simply doesn't have enough dye load, all right? Look at my hands up here for a second, okay? Remember that if I'm holding, let me find something here. Okay, I'm using my telephone, okay? If this is, pretend this is a tube of color, okay? If this is a tube of hair color, and this is a level, let's say it's a level 5 hair color, half of it is dye load, and half of it is ammonia, okay? If this is a level 1 black color, 90% of it is dye load, and only 10% is ammonia. But if this is a level 9 blonde hair color, only 10% is dye load, and 90% is ammonia, because you want more lift, all right? So 90% ammonia and only 10% dye load, there simply is not enough dye load in a level 9 color a lot of times to cover your very resistant gray hair clients. Now, I do make a caveat here. I say that if the hair is a fine texture, then a level 9 may work. That's because, as you guys know, that the coarser the texture, the more resistant the gray is going to be. So if someone has fine texture hair, yes, then maybe you can get a level 9 to work. But if you're using a level 9 hair color in your customer right now, try to make her a blonde, and covering the gray, and you're not getting good gray coverage, step down to an 8. Or maybe you want to do it in stages. You can do like half 8 and half 9 and see if that gives you enough dye load. If not, you can go all the way down to an 8. Okay, so right away that'll take care of a lot of your issues if that's the situation. And also you'll notice this is something, another thing I want to bring up as well, is that sometimes a lot of people have finer hair like around their hairline. So the fine hair may take the color, but the rest of it may not. All right. So again, the main thing about this particular slide is that if you're trying to make her blonde and you're using a level 9 or level 10 and you're not getting good gray coverage, guys, bring it back a little bit darker. You need more dye load to work with. Okay, let's move to the next one. Ground rule number 3. Never put a straight cool red tint on gray hair. This kind of should go without saying, but I will tell you that I see it happening all the time, so I want to mention it. Anytime you're working on white hair, keep in mind that you're going to get the full impact of the color. So if you put a straight cool red tint means that it's going to have a blue base on it. It's going to be in the violet category. That hair is going to come out pink. It's going to come out, it could come out like purpley looking. It could come out mauve-y looking. It could have a lot of weird colors in it because there's no warmth in the hair itself to set it off. Okay, so when you're working on gray-white hair, and I really talk about this more in detail when I do my redhead class, but basically anytime you're working on white hair, you must put in the missing pigmentation, which is going to be some shade of brown. All right. Those of you that are working with chromatics, you know that those red colors are really, really straight because it's a pure tone color line. So I have some clients that I use up to 80%. If the hair is white like mine, I may use up to 80% of my formula will be a brown-based color, meaning an N-based color or a gold-based color, and only 20% would be my red color. All right. But even when I use Wella or if I use L'Oreal or any other color line, still, if you're working on primarily white gray hair, anything that has 75% gray white to 100 gray white, you got to adjust and put 75% minimum of brown-based color in that color and only 25% red. Or you're going to end up with what call really hot roots or pink hair or some really, really vibrant red hair. All right? Again, these are just ground rules. I haven't got into the strategies yet. These are just basic ground rules. Okay, ground rule number 4 for working on gray-white hair. Gray hair will always turn yellow when lightened because of the phenolphthalein pigment which is still in the hair. Okay, this is my natural color. It's white, right? But if you were to put bleach on my hair, like bleach out some foils, for example, my hair would turn yellow. That's because there's still phenolphthalein pigment, which is your red-yellow pigment, in white hair. You don't see it because there's such a little bit of it compared to pigmented hair, but it is still there. And the only reason I put this slide in here is because I just want to make sure that we understand that once we lighten hair, it's going to get warmer. Okay, and this really has to do more along the lines of if you are doing, for example, you may have a client that has already like a lot of gray hair, and you want to go and just put some highlights, but you don't want to redo her base color. Okay, so just be prepared because those foils are going to look yellow. And the reason why I say that is because you always want to break through the yellow, bring her to a pale yellow, and then 90% of the time you want to put a toner on top of it to blend in and to blend in the color. And actually, I do talk about that technique in my gray coverage class, which is one of my classes where I talk about. We're not going to get into this particular class is not going to do this, but when I talk about gray coverage techniques, there's one I call it's called like white on white, where you actually put make the gray hair even lighter with bleach and then put a toner, so it's kind of like an ash on ash color that looks really, really beautiful. So that's a technique you can use. But be prepared. Anytime you lighten white hair, you're going to get the yellow tones coming through it. All right, ground rule number 5. All gray hair, all gray / non-pigmented hair is not created equal, and therefore it will not react the same to bleaching, toning, and tinting. Okay, and again, a lot of that has to do with the various types of texture that we have through our hair. And I mean, you guys on this call here, I know quite a few of you already quite well, and I know that you've been doing hair long enough to know that in one head of hair you don't have all one type of texture. I mean, some people, yes, have coarse texture throughout their whole head, or their hair is fine throughout the whole head. But a lot of us have mixed textures. You may have some finer pieces of hair, you may have some coarser pieces of hair, you may have some really coarse areas, like very resistant. Also, as hair grays, the texture a lot of times becomes coarser. All right. There's a lot of theories as to why that happens, but the hair becomes coarser and more resistant. You know, or you may get great gray coverage on the whole head, but very, very resistant areas of the temples. Okay, that's pretty common actually. The rest of the hair covered great, but your temples did not. So I'm gonna give you a strategy in a little while to fix that. All right, but you have to be prepared for these different situations based on different types of texture that you're gonna be working with. All right. Okay, and number 6, the sixth and final ground rule that I'm going to talk about before I get into the 8 gray coverage strategies are, in most cases, when covering 75% to 100% non-pigmented hair, you have to mix in the desired shade with either a gold-based tint or a natural neutral-based tint in order to make up for lack of warmth. Now, I actually spoke about that a few minutes ago, so I jumped the gun a little bit. But again, keep in mind that most of the time you want to do that. And I would say that that's true even if you want to use like a golden color. You know, even if I want to use a golden brown, I don't want to use necessarily 100% golden brown on 100% white hair because it may become too warm. I may mix that gold with an N-based series. All right. So working with white hair, you have to be very careful because you know, whatever color you put on, that's the color you're going to get. And you have to, you know, unless you want it to be very, very drab, you got to be careful and mix in some warmth appropriately. All right. Okay. So now I want to get into the 8 strategies that we're going to talk about for covering resistant gray hair. So before I do, I want to ask you guys have any questions at this point before I carry on. Give me a high five. It's a little bit odd sometimes just talking to my computer here. I like to know you're out there and listening and paying attention. So just say hi to me in the chat. Okay. Just say hi. Just say hi. All right. Okay. Christine, Katie, listening. Good. Laura, Tracy. All right. Luke. All right. Cool, man. Good. All right. Hi, Yolanda. How you doing? Welcome aboard here. Joan, thanks for joining us. You guys say hi to everyone here in the chat, and we'll carry on. Okay, so now we're going to get into why you're actually here, which is the 8 strategies for covering resistant gray hair. And I want to say something before I get into this category, and it's this. Okay, now you're not going to want to hear this, but it's the truth. Most of your gray coverage problems are not product related, and they're not hair related, they're person related, they're usins related, okay? And when I go through my first few strategies, you'll see what I'm talking about. And, you know, in the old days, we would say, oh, you know, the gray didn't cover because the hair color froze on the truck before they delivered it, you know, or somebody left the cap off the peroxide and the peroxide wasn't working properly, right? Have any of you guys ever heard that before? Okay, yeah, Christine says operator error. Yeah, I think you're right. Have you ever heard of those before, that the color froze on the truck, or somebody left the cap off of the peroxide so the peroxide wasn't strong enough? I mean, I'm sure you guys have heard these before, haven't you? No, Katie says she never heard those before. Okay, good, because they're nothing but falsehoods. But in any case, here's what we need to know. Okay, strategy number 1, guys, take thinner sections. Take thinner sections. We are always in a hurry. You know, we have a client sitting in their chair, we're applying color to. We got another one that's processing, ready to be shampooed. We have another one who just walked in the door. We're mixing up the color. We're running. We're crazy. And we take that color. We take big old wide sections and slap on the color as quickly as possible. And when it's all done, we go like, oh my God, the gray didn't cover properly. Okay? You have to take thinner sections, especially if the person has thick hair. You cannot take someone who has really thick, really dense, coarse hair and apply the color the same way you would if someone has, you know, much finer hair or thinner hair or less hair. All right. So the first strategy I say is take thinner sections. So here I'm saying take thinner sections, especially if you're working on thick hair. Don't take wide, thick sections because you'll be surprised. The color won't go through dense hair. All right. So write this down. Number 1, the first one is take thinner sections. The second one, apply your product to both sides of the section. Again, I see people take a section of hair, they take a dip of color, and they go up, slice up, slice up, slice up. They don't go up and down, up and down. You want to apply color to both sides of the section, not just one side of the section. Okay? Pretend my arm is a strand of white gray hair. You have to make sure that color is completely encapsulated around that hair shaft, not just on one side. If you always go slice up, slice up, slice up, you're never going to get the other side of the color, okay? So you have to take the intersections and you have to apply it to both sides of the section, All right. So what's going to happen here in these 8 strategies is I'm giving them to you in a sequence because first I would try number 1. If number 1 doesn't work, I try number 1 and number 2. If that doesn't work, I try number 1, number 2, and number 3. Okay, so you'll see as I go along here what I'm talking about. All right. Okay, strategy number 3, use extra product. Again, I see people kind of, chinsing out. They go like, oh, I have a half a tube left, so I want to use that on Mrs. Jones so I don't have to open another tube. So they try to stretch the product. Or they put in, a lot more developer, which weakens the product because now you're overcompensating. Or you're doing something that stretches the product and you're not using enough product on the hair. Again, I'll use my example. If this is a strand of hair, you have to completely envelop that hair strand with product, okay? So take thinner sections, put the color on both sides, up and down, and pack in a lot of color. Now, when I say pack in a lot of color, I don't mean you want to have it all dripping all down the sides of her face and down her back and her neck. That's not what I'm talking about. But you can definitely pack in enough color so that all the hair is completely encapsulated with color, all right? So far, we haven't got into anything exotic here, okay? This basically means, how you're applying the product and what kind of product, and what you're doing as far as your application techniques, all right? Okay, number 4, extend the timing. Timing is very important. Again, most manufacturers will tell you that you put the color on and you leave it on for 30 minutes in shampoo. Chromastix says leave it on for 35 minutes. I'm here to tell you that if you have a client that you have resistant gray issues with, you can leave it on up to 45 or even 50 minutes. After like 45 or 50 minutes, basically it does not do anything else. Okay, the color diload has all developed. The peroxide has all the driving force. The peroxide is all dissipated, so it's not going to do anything else. But definitely, you'll see a lot of difference between leaving that product on for 30 minutes versus leaving it on an extra 10 or 15 minutes. It makes a huge amount of difference. So again, I'll say that first use number 1. If that doesn't work, use number 2, and then if that doesn't work, you add these up. You end up doing all of them eventually. All right. Okay. Number 5. Switch to permanent color. Now I have this one in here because at this point I realize that sometimes people are trying to get good gray coverage and they're using a demi color or a deposit only color. And if that's the case, forget about it. Go to permanent color. All right. Remember, demi colors or deposit only colors in a lot of cases don't have ammonia, so you're not going to get the coverage that you would do if you're using permanent hair color. You need the ammonia, okay? Now, for those of you, for example, that are using a demi color that have no ammonia, I would switch those people to permanent color. If you're using a demi color that has ammonia, I would also, if you're still having resistant gray problems, I would move them to permanent color. Sometimes you can get, if you're working with something like Chromastix where you have the deposit only color and the permanent color and you mix those together, you make a hybrid, you can do that. But permanent color will give you best gray coverage. So if you're having a problem with permanent color, with demi color, trying to get good gray coverage, get away from that and go to permanent color. Tracy, thanks a lot. Super glazing. Yes, I call that super glazing. If you're trying to mix your demi color with the permanent color to do super glazing, that can give you pretty good gray coverage also. But if super glazing isn't working, then by all means just forget about the demi color altogether and go to permanent color. All right. Okay, number 6. Now we get into something a little bit more exotic here. Now we say, okay, this person really does have a resistant gray problem. You've done all of these things here already, and nothing still is working. And she definitely has a problem with resistant gray hair. And sometimes you'll have it all throughout the head. Sometimes you'll have it just in certain areas, like maybe the temple of the hair, for example. Okay. So this first one, this number 6 here, what I'm going to talk to you about here is called double pigmentation. And this is a strategy you would use if a person has resistant gray throughout her entire head. Okay. And in my next one, I'm going to share with you another technique if she has resistant, just like a resistant area, like in the temple area, for example. But if she has resistance over the entire head, this is the one you want to use. I call it double pigmentation. And yes, it says to use twice as much color with 30 volume developer. So what that means here basically is, for example, let's say, for example, you're using a color where you have equal parts. Okay, so let's say 2 ounces of developer and 2 ounces of 20 volume peroxide. That's the way, excuse me, 2 ounces of color and 2 ounces of 20 volume developer. That's the way that the manufacturers say to use it. What I'm saying here is that if you have a customer that has resistant gray, her whole head is resistant gray, double the dye load, use 4 ounces of product, hair color, and Do not increase the amount of developer, but change it from 20 volume to 30 volume. So you're getting the extra oxygen there needed to develop all that extra dye, okay? So you're doubling the dye load, okay? So you're putting twice as much product, and you're not putting twice as much developer, but you're bumping the developer up from 20 volume to 30 volume, okay? We call that double pigmentation, all right? Let's see. Katie says 30 volume. Yes, that's a question mark. And Tracy says, is this also called a Bristol? I've never heard that term, Tracy. Possibly in your area, you know, there's so many different terminology out there, so many different types of terminology out there that I've never heard it called that. But it works, okay? So here again, you're doubling your dye load, and you're not doubling the quantity of developer, but you're bumping it up from 20 volume to 30 volume to give you the extra needed oxygen to develop all that extra dye load. If this is for the person, I gotta say it again, who has resistant gray all throughout, coarse texture hair. But again, keep in mind that all of these pertain here, okay? You want to do number 6. You want to do the double dye load, double pigmentation I'm talking about here. You want to use permanent color. You want to extend the timing from 30 minutes to 45 minutes. You want to use extra product. You want to put color on both sides and take thin sections. So you see how they all work together? So it's not a matter of just using one or the other. I want you to use them all in sequence, all right? So as you go down, you realize you're getting more and more and more aggressive with your color, gray coverage problem situation, okay? All right, Luke says, Bristol makes us old Goldwell name. Oh, it's a old Goldwell name. Okay, I've never heard that, and I've been Bristol's. I've never heard that before, and I've been doing this for a long time. But good. Okay, well, thanks for clearing that up, Luke. I appreciate it. Okay, number 7. Okay, use pre-pigmentation with hair color. All right. Now, you guys are going to remember this from your old beauty school days. We were all taught something called color softening. Okay, remember that? Remember, or softening resistant gray hair. That's what it says. We're going to soften the resistant gray hair. And I was taught when I was in beauty school, you know, 200 years ago, to simply get a piece of cotton and put some hydrogen peroxide on there and put it on the gray areas, let it pre-soften with the hydrogen peroxide, and that's going to prepare it to better take the color. And I'm here to tell you that that does not work. All right, pre-softening with peroxide does not work. I'm going to tell you why it doesn't work. It doesn't work because peroxide is an acid-based product. And an acid-based product makes the cuticle layer lay tighter on the hair shaft, which in fact makes it more resistant. Okay, any of you guys here on the in the program today? Any of you guys here remember the days of probably back in the early 70s, the big deal about acid permanent waves? Do you remember that? Give me a yes if you remember it. Acid waves. You know, they call them acid waves, acid perms. Yes. Okay, you remember that. Okay, good. Okay, and the reason acid waves became so revolutionary is because when they're done, not doing the actual processing, but after they're done, they leave the hair on the acid side of the pH scale, which means that they left the cuticle layer closer to the hair shaft as opposed to an alkaline wave, which opened up the hair shaft and left it very dry looking. The acid waves left the hair in very much better condition because it closed the hair shaft down. Okay. So now that's permanent waving. Now let's get back to our hair color. Okay, so like again, in the old days, I was taught that if you want to open that cuticle layer up, put peroxide. But now what I just explained to you tells you that peroxide doesn't open the cuticle layer. It actually closes the cuticle layer. We need something that opens the cuticle layer. So what do we have that we can put on there that's actually going to be an alkaline? And that's what we want to do. That's what we want to use, an alkaline product. Can anybody tell me what an alkaline product is that we have in the salon that we can use? No, I don't see nobody talking, nobody chatting here. Okay. Yes, Tracy, use the color itself. Very good, guys. You can use the color itself. Exactly. Don't use peroxide to dry pre-softening. Use the color itself. So what you want to do is, you know, applying sheet. Now this one is more localized, okay? Where double pigmentation was used when you want to do the whole head, this particular technique is used where it's more like a section of the hair, like typically like the temples or the hairline or someplace like that, okay? So what you want to do, here's what you want to do, is you want to get a very light color. Now it doesn't matter what color you're making her hair. You may want to make her a redhead or a blonde or a brunette or whatever. That doesn't matter. But all you want to do is you want to get a very light color that has a very high ammonia content, okay, like a level 10 shade. Any shade, like let's take a 10N or 10A, it doesn't matter what you're getting. Remember my little gizmo here earlier where I said, okay, you have like in a level 10 color, you have 90% ammonia and only 10% diload? Okay, what I want you to do is get your level 10 color, put a little squirt into a bowl, like maybe it's like about an inch or so, put a few drops of water just to make it more liquidy, more viscous, okay? And then I want you to get a cotton or brush and get that level 10 color and dab it on the resistant gray areas around the hairline. Just dab it on, all right? And leave it there. Now go back to the dispensary, mix up her regular color, the whatever color you're going to put on her, and then you come back and you start applying the regular color throughout the whole head. Okay, leave this out at first. Once you've applied the color to the whole head, then you can get a towel, you wipe off the level 10 color, and then put whatever color your finished color result, the color you really want, over that area, and you will get good gray coverage. All right, so you're using the level 10 color only because of the ammonia in that color, and that's going to open up the cuticle layer enough so that you can then soften it enough so you can get the coverage you want. Now, a couple of things to keep in mind. When I say get the level 10 color, put a little bit in a bowl, I said put a few drops of water so that so that it becomes more liquidy, so you can actually get that and dab it on. Do not mix it with peroxide. I did not say put peroxide in that. Just use a little bit of water, okay? Because you don't need water. All you're using this for is because the ammonia in that hair color, you want that alkaline on the hair to start opening the cuticle layer, okay? I'll say it one more time or repeat what I just said. Client comes in, her hair covers, the rest of the color is fine, except you get a stubborn gray area in the temple every time. Go back to the dispensary, get any level 10 color you want, doesn't matter, because you're not using it for the color, you're just using it for the ammonia content. That's why you need a very high level. Put about an inch or so in a bowl, put a few drops of water, mix up a little bit, get a brush or a cotton, piece of cotton, and you get that product and you dab it right on the resistant areas where you want it. Go back to the dispensary, mix up the regular color, come back, apply her full head. By this time, guys, that color, that pre-softening mixture has been on those gray areas probably a good 15-20 minutes, maybe more. Then after you put the color all over the whole head, you get a towel, you wipe off that level 10, and just put your normal in color all over the whole thing, and you'll be fine. All right? So that's how that works. Okay, Yolanda says here, I was told double pigmented shades contains double gold. Is that true? We're going to talk about that in a few minutes, Yolanda. Just hold on to that question a second. I'm going to talk about double shading in a few minutes. So right now I'm talking about pre-softening hair, and then I will get back to your question here in just a couple minutes, okay? Because I do have a slide about that. All right, and then finally, my eighth one, my last one that I want to share with you here, but I do have two bonus ones, so don't go away. The eighth one is use a darker color. So many times we are fighting resistant gray hair when all we need is more diload. And I'm not just in the real lighter shades. I'm talking about, for example, I've had situations with doing like a level 4 color, for example, and I'm not getting adequate gray coverage, all right? But before I get into any of this other exotic stuff of pre-lightening and pre-softening and double pigmentation, all that stuff, assuming I'm doing all of these correct, let's say numbers 1 through 5, okay, assuming that I'm already doing all of these, I'm still getting gray resistant problems, sometimes I'll just simply go down to a darker color. Even if you go down halfway, let's say, for example, instead of using a level 4, use half 4, half 3, okay? Start introducing some depth of color, a deeper color, and that gives you more diload to work with as well, okay? So you need two things going on here. You need to make the hair less resistant, and you need to increase your diload, all right? Okay, so these are the 8 strategies that I do cover in my book, Great Gray Coverage. This is in more detail here. I do have 2 more bonus ones I want to talk to you about in just 1 second, but I want to answer a question here. Christine Lang is saying, I was at a seminar that suggested dampening the hair with warm water to open up the hair shaft. Comments. Christine, in my opinion, warm water doesn't open the hair shaft. I mean, again, maybe it does. I'm not saying that by all means. I always say, look, there's more than one ways to skin the cat. There's always a lot of different theories out there. But, you know, that's like they used to say, put cigarette ashes in your hair color, and cigarette ashes are going to give you better gray coverage. I mean, you know, there's so many different theories out there that are going to make you crazy. I don't have a comment on that, Christine, because I've never heard that before. The ones that I'm suggesting here to you today, I have used, I do know they work, and that's why I like to teach them. Would color take better on damp hair? in general? No, I don't believe that it would. As a matter of fact, I think just the contrary. I believe that damp hair retards the color because the hair can only absorb a certain amount of liquid. Okay, that's called porosity. And once the hair is absorbed with water, it can actually slow down and retard the action of hair color. It will slow down the process. All right. A lot of times, for example, if I want to tone somebody's hair, but I don't want it to grab too quickly, I'll wet the hair down first and I'll put the toner on, and that slows down the product. All right. So it doesn't, in my opinion, does not give you better gray coverage. No. That's, I hope I cleared that up. Again, that's David Belasco theory, philosophy. Please, if somebody's teaching you something else, ask them about that. But that's not something that I would recommend. As a matter of fact, I personally like to put color on dry hair. My friend Tom Dispenza says he likes to work on hair that's been freshly shampooed and it can be wet. So it's not that you can't color hair that's wet. You can, but I don't think that's going to give you better gray coverage. If that makes sense. Okay. All right. So now I want to talk about, you're welcome, Christine, my pleasure. Are you guys enjoying this so far? Have you learned anything here? Just give me a yes or a 5 on here. I hope I'm answering some of your questions. Tracy saying, according to my pH chart, water is 5, which is acid and will not open the cuticle layer. Thank you, Tracy, for that information. That's a nice bit of information there to share. Okay. All right, guys, good. I'm glad you're enjoying this so far. Okay. All right. And now I want to get into what I call 2 bonus strategies you can use, and they are, especially if you're a Chromastix user, you can use these, but even if you're not a Chromastix user, I'm going to teach you something that you can use whatever color line you're using, okay? If you are a Chromastix user, bonus strategy number 1 is to use the Chromastix 25 volume developer, okay? Chromastix does make a 25 volume developer specifically for gray coverage problems. Again, here the idea being that you're getting a more aggressive product. You're making a more aggressive product. You're not putting in more ammonia, but by putting in more peroxide, according to Tom Dispenza, you will get better gray coverage with this. Again, I would add to this all these stuff that I talked to you about already, okay? Yes, I would increase the 25 volume developer, but I would put in extra product, and I would leave it on longer, and I would put it, make sure you put enough product on the hair, and all those things I spoke about before. But Chromastix does make a 25 volume developer, and I would use that for sure if you're having any kind of gray coverage problems whatsoever. Now, if you are on this webinar today and you're not using Chromastix, you can make 25 volume. Okay, you can make it simply by mixing half 20 volume and half 30 volume. For example, 1 ounce of 20 and 1 ounce of 30. That's going to make your 25 volume. Okay, so you can make your 25 volume if your manufacturer does not carry it. If you are a Chromastix user on this call, then you know for sure that you can use 25 volume. Okay, Christine says, can Chromastix developer be used with any other color? Yes, absolutely. Of course it can. It's peroxide. Yeah, absolutely. I will tell you, there's some manufacturers will tell you that their product line doesn't work well with other. Their developers shouldn't be used with other product line. For the most part, I don't believe that, except for one case. When it comes to demi-colors or deposit-only colors, some color lines, not Chromastix, but some other color lines, use what's called a dedicated developer with their deposit-only color lines. Like, for example, if you use Wella Color Touch, there's a Wella Color Touch developer. If you use Wella Midway Couture, there's a Wella Midway Couture developer. In those cases, those are what's called dedicated developers. Then I would stick to those developers that they recommend using for those particular products. But by and large, for permanent hair color across the board, peroxide is peroxide is peroxide. I don't think there's any difference, to be honest with you. So the question, as Christine, is yes, I believe you can. Okay, so once again, Chromastix user, use your 25 volume. If you're not a Chromastix user yet, which I hope most of you will start thinking about using, you mix your half 20 volume, half 30 volume, and make your 25 volume. And the bonus lesson here, number 2. Again, if you're a Chromastix user, use your neutral concentrate to create a double N series. Now, someone asked me earlier about a double G series. I'm going back to your question here, Yolanda. You're asking me about double G. This is the same theory. Okay, let me talk about this for a second. And I'll tell you also, if you're a non-Chromastix user, what to do here. Here's the thing. You see this little chart here? I put this as Redken Color Fusion. I'm not promoting this in any way. But you see here, I've circled an area here. These are all the NN series, okay? Now, most of your hair color manufacturers out there have now created what's called an NN series, or a GG series, Yolanda, or an RR series, okay? The whole method behind that, the whole idea behind that is that you get double the dye load, or you have extra dye load to work with. So the manufacturers go like, hey, wow, we have a lot of customers that are complaining that they're not getting adequate gray coverage with the normal N series, for example. So why don't we get an N series, put extra N into it, and sell them another whole bunch of color, okay? Well, you know, those of you that have been working with color, you know that you have like 200 shades of color in your salons. I mean, I did that for years myself, so I know exactly what that's about. And so if you're a Chromastix user, Chromastix says, no, we only have 19 shades in our entire line. But instead of giving you or asking you to buy all these extra shades, we're going to give you what's called Chromastix color concentrates, which are these down here. And there's an N, which is brown. There's one that is green that's used to make ash blondes. There's one that is gold, one that is red, and one that is blue. Okay? These color concentrates right here are made specifically to create your own NN series or your own RR series or your own GG series. Okay? So if you're a Chromastix user, simply add more dye load, put more N in there, or put more G in there to give you more pigmentation. These are pure pigment-based colors. All right? So that's if you're a Chromastix user, you can do that. All right? Now for you people on the webinar here today that are not Chromastix users, okay, I will tell you this, that Chromastix recently introduced just the chromastic concentrates for any color line, meaning that's a special package. You don't have to buy the whole Chromastix color line, but you can buy just the Chromastix concentrates to mix into any color line and do what I just said for Chromastix users. And here's the thing. All color lines have what's called mixed tones or additives, all right? I mean, you know, whether you're using Wella or L'Oreal or Schwarzkopf, every color line has what's called color additives. So at the bottom of a swatch chart, you know, kind of like this swatch chart has these colors in the bottom, okay? At the bottom of a swatch chart, you always see somewhere these pure colors. They look like pure colors anyway, okay? And they have red, and they have blue, and they have green. They usually have, you know, 3 or 4 or 5 different colors. But those are not color concentrates like Chromastix color concentrates. Those are what's called color additives. And here's the difference. All those other color lines, and I'm familiar with most of them, I've been studying this for a long time, all those other color lines do not have color concentrates in their pure colors. They're color additives, and they're made with pre-oxidized dye molecules. They're not made with dye molecules in need of oxidation, okay? All of these Chromastix concentrates, these here, these are oxidative tints, which means that you need to mix them with peroxide. They have to be into your peroxide mixture in order to work, okay, to activate them. And that's why they work better, and that's why they last longer, and that's why you can even use them straight if you want to create some really, really incredibly strong colors, okay? So, but your color additives that, for example, when I use Wella, for example, we had, you know, color additives. We have gold and blue, and then the gold, you know, the gold and the red are your enhancers. They're to make your reds redder and your golds golder, and your blue and your violet are to make the colors more ash-based, okay? But because they're made with pre-oxidized dye molecules, they fade away very quickly. That extra punch you get doesn't last, all right? Think of it this way. Those colors, those color additives are closer to like a Rue Fancyful rinse. Remember Rue Fancyful, the little old-fashioned Rue Fancyful that we all use in beauty school? Well, that Rue Fancyful was called temporary color. They're made with pre-oxidized dye molecules. You didn't have to mix them with any developer. And the additives that all the other color lines that I've ever used are made with pre-oxidized dye molecules. These concentrates are not that same thing. Color concentrates by Chromastix are concentrated color pigments that you can put in, and they work in conjunction with your formula. They must have peroxide to develop them, and they work great. So if you're a non-Chromastix user, and if you would like more information on how you can get, Chromastix packages them now in like the pack of 6, pack of 5 different shades. Your brown, your neutral, your gold, red, yes, neutral, gold, red, blue, green, and then you can make, of course, a violet by mixing the red and the blue together. And they give you also a bottle of clear tone to make them all lighter if you want to. And if you want that information, we can get that later on. Contact me after the webinar. As you guys know, I've written a color review on Chromastix. If you want to go to haircolorinfo.com, you can read all about it. Okay. All right. So that's basically how that works. Luke has a question here. The Chromastix concentrates are also weighted to level 2, so they are really intense. Yes, that's right, Luke. Thank you for reminding me about that. As a matter of fact, Tom says that the level 2, you can use the Chromastix colors as an independent dye all by themselves, and they are at about level 2. They're very dark and they're very rich. So you can lighten them up by using 2 ways. You can lighten them up by using the Chromastix Clear Tone, which is a liquid type based product that he has, and also you can use your lightening cream to lighten them up if you want to. Okay, so you can adjust it that way. All right. So anyway, again, both these strategies here, both these bonus strategies, are you can use them as a Chromastix user or a non-Chromastix user. I just told you how you can do that. And I'm pretty much finished here today, I think. Keep in mind the strategies I spoke about today, except for those 2 bonus ones, were all covered in much more detail in my Gray Coverage book, Gray Coverage. And if you want any of my other educational products, guys, just so you know, I have a new website. Those of you that used to be members of the Hair Color Clubhouse may remember that it got hacked and I lost a lot of my information there. So I've rebuilt my a couple of my websites, but I have a new one called haircoloruniversity.com, and that's where I'm posting my blogs. If you want to go there, the blogs, some of them are written blogs and some are video blogs. I have probably only about a dozen right now because I'm starting from scratch because all my other stuff got hacked into and got destroyed. So no big deal. I'll build it all up again. Also, I have webinars in there. This webinar that I gave you today is one little tiny piece of a webinar that I have on Gray Coverage that goes, I think it's about a 3-hour webinar. It gets really into detail on everything you need to know about gray hair. And that webinar you'll find at haircoloruniversity.com. And then my e-courses, I haven't really started them yet. I'm working on them. I haven't launched them yet. I am working on my e-courses, and when they're ready, I'll let you know about that. And if you're interested in my books or any of my videos or DVDs, you can go to haircolortradesecrets.com. And those of you that are not Chromastix users, if you think you're interested in that, you can read my hair color review if you go to haircolorinfo.com. All right? Okay, guys, so that's about it for today. I want to say thanks for spending this time with me. Christine, you are so welcome. Tracy, thank you for coming. Katie, Madison, thanks. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Luke, man, thanks. I appreciate you hanging in there with me. Thank you. Oh, I'm amazing. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Listen, just to let you guys know, I'm going to be doing webinars very frequently. I've decided this is the way to go. Thanks, Kay Grady. Thank you. My pleasure. I'm going to be doing a lot of these. First of all, next week, like I said, Tom Dispenza is doing a webinar. It has nothing to do with me, but he's a good friend of mine, and I'll be on that webinar as well. I will be doing a lot more webinars like this. I want to keep them kind of brief. I want to keep them for under an hour so we don't waste our whole day off, online here. But it's in my opinion, it's the way to teach people. It's the way to educate, and that's what I'm about. As you guys know, I've written books, I have videos and all that, but I really want to help you guys do better color. Once again, I'll reiterate, my way is not the only way, but I've been doing this for a long time, and if I can help you in any way, please don't hesitate to contact me. If you go to haircoloruniversity.com, you have all my contact information there. Give me a call, send me an email, whatever. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And I hope to see you on my other webinars, my future webinars coming up. Like I said, I plan to be doing at least a couple of months, maybe more than that. And I hope to see you guys there. All right? Okay, Yolanda, you're welcome. Thank you. Joan, thanks for attending. Katie, thanks. I really appreciate your time. Christine, Laura, Luke, Grady, Katie, Tracy, Christine, all of you guys, thanks a lot for coming. Thanks for spending your time with me. And I hope to see you at my next webinars. Okay, have an amazing day. Thanks a lot. Bye.